Kelsey, how are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm good. You are the intake coordinator for Boise Rescue Mission right now, correct?
That's right. That's my current role.
And you've had a lot of different things. Event organizer, you're a graduate of the program as well, the
That's
whole
it.
bit. Uh,
I've had, let's see, in the 17 years I've been there, I've worked in our emergency shelter, kids program, teen program, development, events, and new life. So I've gotten to work in a lot of the departments and know a lot about it because of that blessing.
that's awesome. Um, we were talking beforehand. We both came from difficult home lives. My parents got divorced when I was very young. Your parents had struggled as well. Um, I have family members that struggled deeply with addiction and other things. I was very lucky in that even though I was growing up in the same household, I was kind of grabbed and cared for by sports coaches and other people. But
Awesome.
yes, because in the absence of that, I do not know what would have become of me.
Absolutely.
And these are things, it touches me deeply when I hear about people who have had hard times, perhaps didn't have the role models and the adults grabbing them like I did, but were able to go through it and come out of it, which is I think really it is, at least in my opinion, a large portion of people that end up struggling. It's like, look, the situation was bad. You have your physical predispositions, things of that nature, but you deal with this. You've gone through this. Talk to me about your journey and then how you came to being this 20-year veteran, team member at Boise Rescue Mission.
Well, it all started I think I was probably all broken from a young age. I had, a deep pain from neglect and things of that nature. And I also was kind of closed down because of it. I remember very distinctly being, nothing touched me, my parents didn't want to be around me. Guess what? I don't care. I just had this way to shut my emotions down almost and to not feel. And I also was kind of a lone ranger. I just kept to myself, even within our family unit, and didn't let the pain penetrate, of the neglect and the things that we were struggling with. And I started using drugs in high school. And, I definitely felt like it was filling a hole, but it was artificial, obviously. But it was a way for me to feel my emotions or to move past the pain that I had. And it kind of spiraled from there, and I got in trouble for shoplifting, but I didn't have any money on my person, and so that can be a felony, believe it or not. And which, praise God, because this started my journey to recovery, because I didn't even know that I couldn't stop using drugs until the government stepped in and they were like, yo, you have a PO, and this PO says you can't drink or use drugs. And I was like, is that even a thing? Like, it was just so foreign to me. And I realized I couldn't stop on my own. And I was heavily entrenched in the raver culture and just like that hippie vibe and that, free living. And one of my friends in that community had gotten saved. And I just was starting to become broken to the fact that I couldn't stop. And I couldn't keep myself out of trouble because of it. I wasn't somebody who reoffended, but I couldn't do well on probation. And this buddy of mine told me about a church that he had gone to. So I wandered in the morning. So I'd been partying on the weekend. This was Sunday morning. And I wandered in and sat in the top deck of the church and was sitting in the back. And about halfway through, the pastor stops and he says, I don't know who you are, but the Lord won't let me continue until you come down here and get saved. And I'm just like, whoa, you got me twisted. I am not coming down there, and no such thing is happening. But it was like he wouldn't continue on with his message, and it felt like an eternity, right? And it was like I was being propelled up there, and it was just an experience I'd never felt before. And I think with me personally, everyone has their own faith journey if they get there, and some people need to dissect it through knowledge and, just have a different thing. But with God, with me, he just wanted me to know that he cared about me personally and that he was real. And it was like almost being lifted out of my body. Like, it was this extreme spiritual experience when he wanted to reveal himself to me. Well, so I found the Lord that day, but as they were uncovering what that meant to follow God, I mean, it was so foreign to me. I had never picked up the Bible. I had always kind of known there was a higher power and had comforted me in a lot of the abuse and things that I had gone through. And I had a personal relationship with something, but I didn't know Christ. And it was just very foreign for me to understand. And I still couldn't quit using and drinking. So the court system stepped in and kind of partnered with me to get me clean through the judicial system. And I heard about City Light, which is our Women and Children's New Life program. I just was so broken, like over my past trauma and neglect and not being able to stop using drugs. I was very out of control. And it's such a broken feeling to know that you can't stop that hole that you're trying to fill, even though I knew God now, I didn't know how to follow him. I had no guidance. I'd had no training in life. I'd had none of that. And I went to City Light and I said, I need help. And every day I checked into our emergency shelter for 30 days and I just kept saying, I need help. I can't live like this anymore. I need help. And they interviewed me for the program, which is what I do now as my role. And they decided to give me a chance. And as the intake coordinator now, I don't know if I would have given me a chance because I was still using. I'm glad that they saw something in me. And I remember right after, I was just so broken. I was sitting on the back steps of City Light, right after I entered the program. And I had this almost like vision of being so broken that I was just like ground down to dust. There was nothing left. And all the trauma and the things that I'd been through, and I just hadn't gone there, and it was just really painful. And the detoxing and everything. And the intake coordinator at the time, her name was Laura. She's still a dear friend of mine. She came out on the steps and she just put her arm around me and she just wept beside me. And I just had never had anybody care about me in that way I felt like the Lord was just weeping for me too, and that he loved me. And I said to myself, it's different here. I'm going to stay. And I stayed. And I tell the people that I interview for the program, it's called the New Life Program. We call it NLP for short. But what it really means is never leave program. Commit to this process. If you're going to join this program, finish well. Be a finisher. Be someone who follows through and get what you came for. Commit to God. This is his money, his program. Your commitment is to him, to no one else, to not necessarily to our donors, to the people here. It's between you and God that you're going to finish well, no matter how better you think you are, no matter, how sick of the rules you are, no matter who you're mad at, that you're going to finish well because it's a process in our program and you don't get everything until completion. And the way it works is the first 30 days, they're on a blackout period. You don't leave the building. You have a time to write your life story, to be set apart, and to really uncover those first 4 steps of recovery and what brought you to this place, what you've done to others, what others have done to you. And during that time, you do some foundational Bible work. Now, this program, the New Life program, is Bible-centric, all Bible, all day, all the time. It's a discipleship program. All the other programs at the mission, which there are numerous, that's the only one where the Bible's required, right? It's something you sign up for and you want. All the other programs, it's there if you want it. It's not something that is required of any of our guests, but this program is all about the Bible. So you learn some foundational Bible stuff, write that life story, attend church online, you're protected that first 30 days in the house. And you don't leave and you kind of solidify your commitment because the door is wide open. You choose this every day for you to humble yourself, to live within a homeless shelter, to really face everything and to truly lay your life down for God and to serve the people in our emergency shelter. You're serving physically, to keep the place running and just giving of yourself, and so it's a big commitment. Now, after that, there's 4 other phases that you complete. Each phase has 8 self-help books that are all Bible-centric, that are focused on your needs. It might be, what does the Bible say about overcoming neglect for someone such as myself, or domestic violence, or things like that. And you read all the New Testament, a lot of the Old Testament, throughout these 4 paths. And everything you read, you break down a paragraph of what it was about, each chapter, and a paragraph of how it applies to you. You're doing deep work. You're getting to the root. And the first phase is called Facing Yourself. It's about what you've done to others and what others have done to you. It's huge in recovery. Second one, well, who does Christ say you are and what is truth? How do you, counteract that? What do you need to do? How do you build community? The third one is called Right Relationships. And for women, that romantic relationships is the leading cause of relapse. So you can't leave before you do that 9th month. I mean, you got to get there because it's super important work. And the fourth one is called Walking in Freedom. And you learn how to use what you've learned in your daily life. And then we have a next step apartment, a next step that people are involved in where they live in a connected community apartment complexes that we have and, get to that next step while being connected. And, it's your rescue family. It will never leave you nor forsake you. Your rescue family will stick closer than a brother, and that's what I found at the mission is, being able to be for others and others be for you what you need. And, it's my rescue family. So I stayed and now I get to partner with them. So.
I mean, and when you talk about romantic relationships being the number one cause for relapse for women,
yeah,
what I hear is, look, I've never been a woman. I'm never gonna be a woman.
Yeah, that's true.
But I still deeply feel that in that it's the intimate connections we have, physical or emotional. It's the connections we have. And I've seen this with family members. I've seen it in myself at times.
Yeah.
It's those connections and what those connections make us into that I've experienced being like, oh, this is bringing out the worst me. Like I can't even be, around this person because I'm going to end up getting into trouble or doing things like that. And it's that closeness that you want, that comfort of that familiarity.
Yeah.
And then that again just leads you down those dark trails. Is that what you guys experience as well? Is that the nature of it? Because again, I've thought about this a lot. Why is it that family drags us down? Why is it that when we're trying to better ourselves, some people closest to us might blow that off or not believe in it or not want that for us? They want us to be how they experienced us, how they need us, right? What they want from us.
Yeah.
It's all of those things, and it's breaking that connection, or at least in times when I've struggled, it's breaking those very, very close connections that's actually allowed me to reorient myself, like as a free agent, right? Like I'm no longer clinging to this thing, but it's like, no. The compass was stuck, and now you can reorient, north.
I think I want to tell you a story to kind of give you perspective in my own life. So I graduated the program, I think it's been like 21 years ago. Went to college, got my degree. I got married. I was working in our emergency shelter. I worked in there for 5 years. It's a gift for people to. We have some amazing people working there now, but it's a trial too. Just the emotional toll. But it's a blessing to be able to partner with people in our emergency shelter. Well, I was working in there. I met my first husband, and we got married, and we had a kiddo. And his job, he traveled. So we ended up having to travel some small towns here in Idaho as he built roads. And he became very abusive, extremely abusive and mentally unstable. We found out he was schizophrenic, and it was onset during this time, but he wouldn't seek help. And it got really, really bad and physical. And, I nearly lost my life, and I have a son. He was 3 at the time. And this is how your rescue family steps in and what relationships can do. I had started using pain pills while we were together to kind of combat that. And I have some autoimmune diseases. So I kind of started to use those again and, really destroyed my recovery, but legally. It was just, an ugly time for me. I came to the rescue mission. I had to leave him. It was really difficult because of my faith, but my life was on the line. And he ended up cheating. And so I was like, oh, okay, I'm out of here. And I got a divorce, but I was just so broken. My son was at my mom's, and I tried to hang myself. And I mean, I'm a mom, and I just don't know what happened in the darkness. I was so broken again over this relationship. And I came to the mission and said, this has happened to me. And they said, we love you. Come stay with us again. Come do a program for domestic violence recovery. This was 14 years ago. And that's how your rescue family is. Like, they kicked my son and I in after that. Even though I'd been an employee, they didn't judge me. They let me come in as a programmer again, find that again. They tailored an entire program around domestic violence recovery for my son and I to complete. It's that relationship, it tore me down again. I feel like I jumped into it too quickly at the time. Like, I'm married now again, and my husband is absolutely fantastic, and the Lord really blessed us. But that second program, I learned that I have to make the Lord my number one. And that whole, that thing that you were talking about, that relationship that you try to, that fills that void for me and for, I believe, all of us, you have to have God in that hole so that, you're 100% well without anyone, so that you can be that servant to your partner and that servant to your friend. And, to serve in joy, and for it to be a fulfilling thing, and to not need anything from that relationship because you're already full. And that's just what the rescue family does. That's what your donations do. That's what this community does. Is I'm one of thousands of people in this valley, and moving here, I'm sure you see the freedom in this valley, and it comes from the safety net that we have for people who are broken. And it starts with, what I found at the rescue mission, and, my monthly donation, and all of us who participate. It's changing lives like in such a drastic way. I mean, just thousands of people that I have been a part of who now are donors, who are now pouring into other community members who are a part of this beautiful community because of what our donations and what the Lord is doing at the rescue mission.
That is, man. It would be hard to overstate the importance of that program.
Yeah.
Obviously, in your life.
Yeah, amen.
When I've looked at my life, you talk about the first step of writing out your life story, and that struck me because it's like, wow, that's the guy who was actually the director of my rhetoric program when I was going to college.
Okay.
Went into college as a math major, really liked math, and then I switched to rhetoric and learned how to communicate. He had this emphasis on the autobiography, right? Like how you see your story, right? How you see how you're moving through the world, and how you view yourself as you relate as a function to the world.
Yeah.
Right. And the first thing that you talk about, which is what you have done and what people have done to you. Yeah. When I've looked at difficult aspects of my life or confronted things that I don't like, people have done things to me, and, some terrible and not great, but I also always try to focus on, look, what have you done? Like, what was your part? Not even what was your part. Look at the entire thing as a function of your action, not as 50% of the action. That's a really painful and difficult thing to do. It's really hard for me. And, I shared a story with you right before we started where it's like, it took me all day of this just like grueling, this one instance, exceedingly painful admission of this horrible, path that I had been on. Yeah. And that was this freeing moment for me at the end. It was like, okay, guess what? That was you. That was what you were doing. These were the things you were doing. This is how you got in this situation. And this is how you're never going to be in this situation again. Yeah. And that was a beautiful thing. But that came to me as an older person. I was like 41 at the time, or 40 at the time, whatever the age was, doesn't matter. But it was like, okay, you are now reoriented. And I knew how to face that stuff and look at the bad things in my life or my bad decisions and move forward with that. And again, nobody died, right? Like, this is nothing like that. It's just like, hey, look, you've gone, this is not working. Whatever it is you're doing, it's not working. Right. How do you bring people to the point that are suffering and in pain and feel that the world is just this horrible, dark place, which I believe it is in those moments.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
But how do you get people to say, and orient people and say, okay, look, the first thing you're going to do is figure out how you've made this world that you're trapped in.
Yeah.
Like, how do you do that with people? Because it is so painful. And for people struggling, it's just another layer. It's like, okay, I have to deal with the way the world is right now, failure of relationships, failure of careers, failure of personal goals and health, all of these things. And then you also want me to write down about how it's my fault. Like, how do you get people to buy into that?
It's a hard road to walk. You know, when I'll ask them, how well do you take correction? You know, in our interviews, and I'll say, we're going to be all up in your business. I'll say, we're going to tell you when you can drink coffee, how many shirts you can have. You know, like the rule book is this thick in our program. And it's all about dying to self, you know, and realizing those things. And your case manager is going to tell you about behaviors that you're not going to want to hear because they helped you survive what you've been through. They're protective personalities, but they're not serving God. And I'll tell them in their interview, you know, how well are you going to take that? And when they interview for our program, I'm like, are you so sick of using that you would rather cut off your arm than take another drink? Are you that tired of it? Because that's when this program is right for you, because it's hard. It's a really difficult program, but it works. And I try to, you know, it's love. Everything we do is in love. You know, we're not pulling apart your behaviors because we want to hurt you. We want to love you and lead you to salvation, you know, and to a new life. And so that's what's different, you know, is it's all in love. And I was at a church a couple of days ago speaking to a ladies group. And when I got done, a gal came up to me, and they were an elderly group. They're amazing. And she said, I have your autobiography title. She goes, if you ever write a book, you should call it, It Was Different Here, So I Stayed. And that's what was different, you know, the love. They didn't want anything. They don't want anything from you in that program. It costs our donors, you know, $30,000 to put someone through the program. It's expensive, right? But we want to pour into them. We don't want anything in return other than for you to be free. For you to be free and to set others free. To be a part of this beautiful community, you know? So that's what's different, you know? They just want to love you. And they're not trying to harm you. It's just, and you're free too. Like, you can leave at any time. You choose it every day. And the thing that I loved about the program personally, just because you're so selfish in addiction. I was so selfish in like trying to protect myself really from what I grew up around, and just, you know, you're very selfish and you get to serve people even when you don't want to. Like, you got to be up at 5 a.m. to put down ice milk, to make the breakfast for the guests downstairs, to work the front desk. Back in those days, we met at 5 a.m. to pray for the house. I mean, you're just up working and helping the homeless, you know, and people, you want to raise the bottom, you know, you want to make a safe place for them to hit the bottom. And you try to do all the work around the house. And I remember one day I was upstairs and I was just looking out over 14th Street and Jefferson Street downtown, and I was just praying for the people who are walking past. And I said, you know, something's changed in me, you know, because now I want to help others. I want to pour outside of myself, because I was just the most selfish individual. And, you know, that's what the program helped me do. And it's the love that you find there, you know, it's something that pours through you. So that's what I found there.
Boise Rescue Mission got on my radar because a lot of people, including Ada County commissioners and some other people, are like, hey, what they're doing is different.
Yeah.
And the drug addiction, pill addiction, homeless crisis throughout our country is really significant. I was actually and it's not that it can't happen in conservative places. I was actually in Utah just last week, and we were just going to get dinner or something, and my family, and we're like, holy cow, like, look at all, there are tons of homeless people, tons of shopping carts, and all of this. It's like, and you come to Boise, and that's not here. Like, well, I've told myself, there's a little
safety net.
There's a safety net. And And the idea that it couldn't happen here, it's like, that's not reality. Like, it absolutely could. It's happening there. It's not happening as bad there as in my former state in California, but it's happening everywhere. And the industry that has developed around supporting homeless people, and I really call it the industry because you're pouring billions of dollars in, for instance, the state of California into homelessness, right? You're not pouring billions of dollars into programs like you're describing. You're pouring billions of dollars into this homeless industry. What, like, had you been in any government funded programs? Had you attempted different things? Like what? And talk to me about that. What was the contrast between what ultimately you found, the people you found that were different, and what you had seen previously?
It's about not enabling. It's about raising the bottom. Like I said, you want people to run into walls before they're dead or worse. That's what I see that's different. It's about what we do to not enable or make the addiction easy. You want to make it hard early. Like that's what I found that's different here. It's like you hit a wall sooner if people are not equipping you to continue using, not equipping you to stay in your pain. You know, that's what we do at the mission. We equip people. And the thing about even in our emergency shelter, it's a hand up, not a handout. We require you to follow rules. We require you to work towards your next goal. So, for example, the journey usually starts in our emergency shelter, right? They have found themselves homeless because family are not enabling them to kill themselves. Things like that. Our government is doing a better job than some to not equip them to use drugs, right? We've made this illegal. We're not enabling that. And so they found themselves here in this homeless shelter with nowhere to turn. And we're going to meet with you and develop a case plan within 24 hours. Whatever has caused you to become homeless. Maybe you're able-bodied and you just need a bus pass and some killer clothes and a computer and, a form to fill out 40 job contacts a week and let's get busting, and some ideas of where to go. Or maybe you never got an education. We have a really robust education program and we equip people to get their GED and we pay for it and we provide all the tutors, and maybe that's your case plan. Maybe you're physically unable to work and we're going to work with you on what that looks like to help you become self-sufficient where you're at. So it's about not enabling. There's a lot of rules. If you check into our emergency shelter, we require you to continue to check in every night and do your chore and do your case plan. If you have somewhere to stay there. If you're looking to life change, stay here. You can't just pop in, pop out. There are other programs here that can help people who are looking to just pop in and pop out and not work a case plan. We have a really amazing safety net to meet people where they're at. But the rescue mission is going to help you move towards life change, and we're going to equip you. We're going to be a hand up for all your hard work. People work super hard to get to their next step, so they hold on to it. So it's about equipping and not enabling.
Right.
In my mind.
And I didn't I'm not trying to, when you have cities or towns that are really trying to address homeless crises, I'm not trying to vilify those people, right? No. Like there's a lot, but there's also what you're talking about flies in the face of what most people think, which is we should be helping people regardless of what the people are willing to do. We should not have roadblocks or prerequisites to helping people. Like, they deserve food and shelter. They deserve safety.
Yes.
I'm like, yeah, people deserve food and shelter and safety. Like, yeah, I'm not, there's nobody
they also deserve self-sufficiency.
Right. That's what I'm getting at, which is how do we reconcile as a broader community? If somebody from Boise came to you and they're like, all right, listen to me, you are going to help us revamp our entire, the Boise, the city of Boise system that grabs people, the safety net. What's the number one thing you tell them? You're like, hey, look, this is what you guys are doing right and great. And this is where you're philosophically pointed in the right direction. Great. But these are the things you're doing that need to be better. What do you tell them?
I would literally just say, like, let's look at what we're enabling them to cause themselves pain, and let's look at that. And then how are we equipping them to move towards health and life change and joy and a new life and things like that? Like, that's kind of what I would say. I'm definitely not a politician, and I'm not
Sure.
the head of the
Yeah,
mission.
you
I
and
would
me.
probably quit, send them to our team, they are awesome and they do that. And I would say if you have a friend who's struggling with brokenness and wants help, give them my cell phone number,
Right.
because that's what I do. But that's my thought, just as someone who struggled. I'm thankful that people weren't enabling me to continue to kill myself.
The love you talk about, though, I think, and this is the
Yeah.
thing that really gets me, the compassion and love that you talk about, I think are the same things that, in my mind, slowly misguide people.
Yeah.
So it's like, it doesn't seem compassionate to have somebody who's at the end of their rope and be like, hey, I have an apartment, I have food, I have help, but you got to stop doing this thing, right? Because then people are like, well, look, I mean, they need it. It's like, yes, they need it. But we have this cross section of enabling met with unyielding compassion.
Yeah.
Where it's like, this is where we get, and that's where enabling breeds, right? Where you're compassionate and you don't want to require anything of somebody to get them what you think they need.
Yeah.
It's like, but that's not a road to self-sufficiency.
And what we do. Well, we've been around since 1958, and it's like, this works, this doesn't. This works, this doesn't. And, the Boise Rescue Mission has a really fine-tuned oil machine that, hundreds and hundreds of people are moving towards life change every year. Right. It's like over 600 folks, get into their own home and, every year from our programs. And so a lot of it too, what we do is, work to break the cycle of homelessness. We have a very robust kids program, working with the children we serve, kind of like what you were talking about too. It's like positive childhood experiences, caring, counteracting those negative childhood experiences with people who love them and want to pour into them like you experienced, and getting our youth out. Like, a lot of what we do at the mission is to serve the youth and to really pour into them. We do a college road trip every year. We take them to a local or a neighboring state and tour all their all their colleges and get their horizons broadened. And here in town, we tour all the local higher education opportunities. And, we have this really cool program called Teen Job Corps. That's what we call it. And we give them a job through the summer. We pay them $10 an hour.
That's great.
Teach them to be really bad, awesome, just cool employees, and how to dress right and how to be on time and how to be a killer employee. And, we do a lot of good, clean fun. We get them out. Like, what are you good at and what do you like? What do you need? We do homework club every night over at City Light on the weekdays and do their homework with them. And, we have this cool kids program where they come anytime school is out. So school-age kiddos can come to City Light. Anyone we have ever served, ever, since 1958, their kiddos can come and spend their school off days with us in the summer, spring break, what have you, President's Day. And we do a lot of tutoring, but we do a lot of good, clean fun. We go rock climbing. We go to the gym. We go to swimming lessons. We go to Wahoo's. We go to Roaring Springs. We do line dancing, just whatever, to get their minds expanded and find out what they're good at. And, we serve them all 3 meals. We provide their needs, but we talk about what's next for them, why they're special, what they're good at, what needs do they have. And we get to pour into their lives and care about them. So that's a lot of what we do too.
Man, that's great stuff. Something you mentioned a couple minutes ago about how our government is doing a good job saying, hey, you can't have these drugs.
Right. Amen.
There is a huge criticism of the state by the surrounding states and some people in the federal government that Idaho has held strong with saying, hey, we have strict, robust prohibitions against drugs. Yes, we have alcohol, and it's, spirits are served at, the state, not served, but sold by state liquor stores. But we have not gone by the way of other states with legalizing marijuana or, Oregon, legalizing whatever.
Yeah.
There is criticism of that by a lot of people that say, hey, people just go over the border, or, hey, I should be able to do whatever I want. And I think that's for somebody who's functioning normally in the world and siloed off. Like, if you have somebody who lives where no one else exists for 100-mile radius, siloed, like just this lone wolf, and that person, smokes pot. It's like, okay, That person by themselves in the middle of nowhere has no relation to the community or anyone else. It's like, yeah, you're not hurting anyone. But as legalized marijuana relates to our broader society,
Yeah.
that is not the case. Working with the law enforcement agents I have, and then hearing you talk about this, like, what do you think would have happened, or what do you think would be the result to our existing population of people that are struggling with drugs and having a difficult time with this if all of a sudden our government and community said like, hey, and by the way, smoke all the pot you want, like get after that? What do you think would happen?
I think it's going to be what we've seen in other places. And I mean, as you could see by what they've found, it's just kids are trying it earlier. And, there's going to be a certain number of people who are addicted, and makes it more accessible to everybody. And to children specifically. Like that's where my heart goes out, just being as someone who started using at such a young age and started with weed. It was a gateway for me. And, they've just proven with statistics that, kids are trying it more rapidly, at a younger age in the places where it's more readily accessible and legal. I mean, I think that's what we would see. As somebody who is an addict and who it destroyed their life, and I can't even drink. I got to watch how many Red Bulls I have, like I just, you know what I mean? Like for me, I'm speaking from that standpoint that I would like it to not be as readily accessible to like my children who might be predisposed to addiction and things like that. So for me, I vote no legalizing of drugs, but.
Right. But again, that's the point, because you're dealing with people.
Amen.
You have your own life experience.
It just leads to such a brokenness.
Right. You're not dealing with like the farmer out in the middle of nowhere, not picking on farmers, but like somebody who's just living alone who's like, hey, why would the government care if I smoked pot? It's like, well, you in the middle of nowhere, you don't really have a lot of effect on other people. If you're, 100-mile radius, nobody's coming around. Fine, whatever you want. But that's not how we live. That's not how we exist. We are dealing with people that struggle with addiction. We are trying to help them become more successful partners and members of society. And when you start talking about kids, I had not heard that statistic that in legalized states and areas you have earlier and earlier.
Yeah, I was just reading an article on it, and it's like anything. Like when alcohol is legal, it's around, right? Kiddos are going to try it. I mean, that's our experience, and it's a similar situation. And as somebody who, drugs and alcohol destroyed, my life and so many others. And, as the intake guy who interviews people and kids and, every day and see them pass from fentanyl or what have you. And I started smoking weed because my mom had it, or, I hate drugs. So you're asking the wrong guy,
No, but okay. I appreciate that. Yeah. You have your opinion.
Yeah.
But you also have a perspective that very few people have, which is one, I went through this.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people who've like, look, I've smoked pot before. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't currently. It's not something, and I also I don't drink.
Not everyone's going to have it be a problem.
So for me to be like, oh yeah, legalize it, it's no problem. Were that my perspective, it's like, yeah, because it doesn't affect me. It doesn't bother me. Like, it's not something I feel drawn to. Like, we could be stoned right now if we wanted to. Like, I'm sure we could go out and find it somewhere and then, whatever, right? We would drive 45 minutes across the border, go pick some stuff, but we're not. We're drinking black coffee and like trying to have a real conversation. Like, that's the world I prefer to live in.
Yeah.
But that's me, right? So my perspective on this of like, hey, it's cool because it doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
I observe in myself. It's like, well, that's kind of a BS position, right? Like,
there are
if
kids
you don't,
who are going to pick it up and they're going to feel like what I felt like the first time I smoked pot and drank. I was like, I feel like I'm myself now. I feel like that hole is filled. and it was artificial. It destroyed my life. And I just don't want it readily available for my kids.
Right.
Or any other kids or people in general. Like I mean, we lose people every day as the intake guy, and the stories I hear that the brokenness and things that happen to people and children because of alcohol and drugs. And, I stand against it.
Right.
So,
right. And that's important to know. That's my point, which is, look, don't listen to my position, because my position is of somebody who's like, oh, it's of no consequence.
Right.
Like, it has been of no consequence in my
your life or the people around you.
In my life, right? But conceptualizing, one, how it would affect people that do struggle with it, and two, how it would affect their children if they have them, or the children of our community, that is a different conversation. And hearing from you saying like, look, this is what's going to happen. The kids are going to try it if it's around. It's more likely to be around a certain percent. That's right. And a certain percent are going to get derailed. Like these are all problems. And there was a sentiment years back that it's like, hey, it's better than alcohol. Like people aren't dying from it. All of these, you know, the idea that you can't, I don't think there are recorded cases of people smoking too much marijuana and then dying, right? Just like alcohol, right? Like alcohol, you can actually die, right? That doesn't, there's no parallel there. And that is a statistic or an aspect of legalizing, or the argument of legalizing marijuana that people really like to highlight. They're like, nobody dies from smoke. They're going to like, they're going to kill a bag of Doritos. And it's like, okay.
I get all that.
Yes, right. You get that. But
it's gateway.
It's
alcohol too. That's why we have laws against the age to use it. And we try to really monitor alcohol, right? No driving motor vehicles. I mean,
you're right.
It's dangerous. They're all dangerous.
Right. And again, even if you say like, okay, yeah, the Doritos, they ate it, fine, whatever. That's looking at that event, that siloed event, that one time. It's not looking at the fallout. It's not looking at the difference in character over the next week, over the next month. It's not looking at the difference of productivity. If somebody continues using, it's not looking at all of those things that they will get into, or a certain percentage of people will get into. And again, my perspective is dumb because it didn't, but that doesn't mean it wouldn't. And so when talking about, and again, I was not intending to have like a pot conversation with you, but it's just, it's so clear. It's like, listen, this is a real problem. And for the people that say like, oh, who cares? Yeah, you care. Because you're dealing with the young people that could be susceptible to it. You are dealing with the adults that have been drawn into it. You're dealing with the actual fallout that most people don't see. Yeah.
Yeah. And just watching people lose their lives, lose their children. And you know, that's another thing about City Light, where I work. It's the only long-term program in the state where your kids can be with you doing long-term treatment. It's a minimum of a year to complete our program. Your kids can live there with you. They get recovery too. It's like my eldest son, who's 16 now, lived with me when I was in the program after that divorce. And, you know, it's just so neat to see their lives transformed. And it's just awesome. So
that's wonderful. Gosh, I feel like I have so many questions, but like we've covered so much stuff. Listen, let's have this conversation again. Let's call it right now. Let's make it.
I've had a lot of fun meeting with you.
Yeah. Is there anything you wanna say here at the end? Is there anything you really want to point out?
I do. I want to say thank you to all the donors and people who are listening, who, you know, have saved my life, and countless others, you know, the thousands of people who have changed their life because of the generosity and the donations here in the community. I want to say thank you for all the kids that I'm serving, for the people in our program now, for everyone to come. You know, thank you for partnering with us in this beautiful community and helping us bring people to freedom. So I wanted to say thank you.
That's beautiful. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you.
I love it. I would do it for free. Yeah. I mean, I absolutely love what they do. And, you know, I owe them my life. I owe the Lord and the rescue mission my life, and I intend to pay it back, you know, while I'm on this earth, you know, as much as I can.
God bless you, woman. You're the best.
I love it. I love it.
Thank you for coming today. Let's make this first many. I want to stay connected with you guys. Okay. You're doing great work. I've loved meeting you today. And again, let's keep this going.
Okay. I heard you might meet with a couple other people too.
Yes, which I'm super pumped about. You know, again, the stories, it's helping people, at least my mind, it's helping people. Like, we could all fall into this, right? Like, I dodged a bullet.
Everybody falls into brokenness.
You know? Yeah.
You know, whatever that looks like. And to have a community and people who love you, that's what it's about. That's what will help you get through it.
That's beautiful.
Being a person is hard.
It is. I was saying this yesterday, like, life is just hard. Yeah. Like, this
not easy on this earth.
Yeah. No. And I was telling my wife this morning, just when we were drinking coffee, he was like, thank God we met each other when we were young,
Yeah.
and we engaged in really difficult things right out of the blocks. When we were together and then married before we had children, we did not take it easy. Like, we hammered really hard, and I think we oriented ourselves as a couple. We oriented ourselves to lean into difficulty instead of, like going on ski trips and doing this. Like, we were grinding and grinding. And that has served us because we keep looking, and now we're in our 40s. It's like, dude, this is really hard. Like, it
is. I've got a teenager.
Oh my God.
It's intense. When they're your own, it's like, wow. Right?
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, thank you very much. I'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.